Hi, welcome to another Thinker's Update. I'm Tim Mahoney, Director of Patterns of Evidence. Last week we had David Rohl, Egyptologist, talking about the challenges that are faced when trying to look at the story of the Exodus. Well, this week we're going to talk about the Semitic people that come into this area known as Avaris, the city that's underneath the city of Ramesses. I hope you'll enjoy it.
Now, this is a satellite image of the area, and you can see two villages. This one is called Kantia, up here, a large village, and down is a tiny little village called Tel Adaba, and here, this semicircle here is the remains of what we call a tell, or a mound, a ruin mound of an ancient city. But it's the last remnants of it, because this region has been heavily cultivated and where most of the city has been dug away for farming. So most of the city is invisible, but if I show you what it used to look like in the ancient times, it'll give you a much better impression. Now what's happened is the archaeologists here dug 800 drill cores into the ground in this whole region. And they worked out where the river was and where the towns were and where the marshlands were and where the fields were. And we get this. The ancient Pelusiac branch of the river flowed through this region and it's now completely disappeared. And around it were these things we call turtlebacks, which are sandy mounds, little islands. Now it's on these islands, these turtlebacks, that the city was formed. This is very complicated, but the city of Ramesses, up here, this pink area, that's all the 90th dynasty city of Ramesses II, and this is the southern district of Ramesses, but earlier we have the city of Avaris down here. So the southern quarter of Ramesses was built on top of the older city of Avaris. The city itself has disappeared. It took us 200 years to work out where Ramesses was because we found little bits of statues lying in the ground like this. All the temples and the blocks and the statues were moved to another location by the Egyptians, leaving just these little fragments. Further south, where the Austrian mission are digging today, and have been, as I say, since the 60s, we get a very different terrain. They only have to dig down less than a metre, and they come across the remains. All the rest of it has been dug away by the farmers and turned into fields. So we just have the foundations of the city lying just beneath the surface. The excavation team is led by Manfred Bietak, who is a very famous Austrian archaeologist, and he's the one that found no evidence for the Israelites in Goshen. So if we look at a cleaned up map here, this is Avaris in blue here, these areas here, with the river flowing, splitting in two at this point. Ramesses does not exist at this time. And we're going to look at three things. First of all, the 12th dynasty palace and temple. That's the heart of the city, if you like, where the royal family used to live in the summer. And then there's a palace of a vizier over here. We're going to look at that in a little bit more detail. And then there's the main settlement of what we call the Semites or the Asiatics, the people from Canaan. This area here was completely filled with dwellings and graves of these foreigners living in Egypt. This reconstruction shows you what part of the city looked like. Here you see the palace of the king and the temple on the edge of the river here, on the east side of the Pelusiac branch of the river. And here's the Egyptian quarter and then the Semitic quarter up here. This has been reconstructed from what we know of the site today. And in fact, it extended further across the river as well, so it is one of the biggest cities in the ancient world. Something like 30,000 people lived in this city. And for the ancient world, that's enormous. Here's our little temple and palace, summer palace of the king, the residence where he would come in the summer months to go hunting and fishing. And it's in this spot right here. If you want to believe the story, it's where Moses floated with his little basket and settled in the reeds for the princess, the Egyptian princess, to pick him out of the water and take him into the royal palace. This is how it looked. This is how it was. Today, of course, it's a complete and utter mess. This is actually what's left of the excavations of the main settlement, the Asiatic settlement, that the Austrians have dug in the 1960s. This is how it's overgrown now. And this is at the place called Tel Adaba, the mound of the hyena in Arabic. And if I show you what it looked like during excavations, you'll see the work that's gone on here in this part of the site. Digging right down to the lowest levels, finding out when the city was founded, what happened to the city throughout its history before its abandonment at the top level here, where the village is today. So, it's the Middle Bronze Age city of Avaris. This is the only real candidate for the era and location of the Israelite sojourn as handed down in the biblical tradition. We're going to now look at what this site can reveal to us about the Israelites. This is a picture of two Israelite graves. The one on the right has not been fully excavated yet, and the one on the left there has been dug down to where the body was. The bodies are laid on their sides, usually facing towards the east, in a semi-flex position, semi-fetal position, knees tucked up into their chest. This again is not an Egyptian practice. Egyptians, as you know, I'm sure you know, are laid out in their coffins like this, or if you're a king, like that. Ordinary folk were not buried on their sides in Egypt, not Egyptians. The people who buried on their sides were always people from Canaan, from the north. And in the tomb you find pottery usually, and that pottery tells us where that culture came from, what type of culture it was. And what we know from the artifacts is that these things, which are called duck-bill axes, or axe heads, because they look like the bill of a duck, they are Middle Bronze 2A Canaanite weapons. They come from Canaan. And the storage jars are also Canaanite. They're not Egyptian either. And these little ungent jars here, they're only small like this, piriform in shape. They are typical Canaanite vessels as well. They're not Egyptian. So everything about this culture that we get out of the graves tells us that these people are not Egyptian, they're foreigners from the north. Look at this very waterlogged grave, small grave. Lots of pottery that we know is typically from Canaan. And then this strange thing here, which I shall just clean up for you and show you what it really looks like. It is a beautiful bronze belt worn by a chieftain figure. So I want you to imagine an Asiatic or a Semite in his long gown with his magnificent bronze belt around here, sporting a very fine set of daggers. These are typical Middle Bronze Age daggers from Canaan, with a ribbing that you see on the blade, ivory handles, gold rivets, and bronze as well. So beautiful weapons. A rich people, not an impoverished people. A wealthy, tribal people from Canaan.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I find that evidence and that information fascinating. And I don't know if you know this or not, but David Rohl was the first one to point out this connection between what happened at Avaris and the biblical story. Well, next week we're going to continue with the David Rohl lecture series, but what we're going to look at is a different part of the story. We're going to look at the conquest. So join us again next week as we hear more from the David Rohl lecture series.